Hello, greetings. I'm just waiting for people to check in so that I can start because I need to be sure that people are hearing me before I begin speaking. Hello, greetings, everyone. I can now see there are people that are joining. Just let me know if you can hear me. But today I'm talking about the chaos witnessed in the Pan-African Parliament. It has been really disgraceful for Pan-Africans and for also Pan-African organizations because we don't expect such kind of chaos in the Pan-African Parliament, which is supposed to unify Africans, regardless the region where they come from. But now it appears that regionalism is undermining Pan-Africanism, and various regions in Africa, led by West Africa and East Africa, they were struggling to ensure that elections were held, even even in spite of the fact that the southern region had expressed interest in providing the leadership that has been missing, and it needs to be given an opportunity to also lead the Pan-African Parliament, embracing the rotational leadership principle that is in the African Union Constitution. So therefore, we as Pan-Africanists, we need to be the referees of the Pan-African Parliament, because what has been going on so far is not something that is pleasant to our eyes. Very disgusting, and it's a step backwards. We need to see order restored in the Pan-African Parliament. But for this to happen, there's need for real Pan-Africanists to assume their positions in the Pan-African Parliament and provide the leadership that is missing. Honorable Julius Malema did a great job in trying to confront these people that believe that they own the Pan-African Parliament just because they have the majority in the House. Now they think that they have the right to elect candidates from their regions, and deny the Southern Africa and also the Northern Africa a chance to also provide the leadership at the helm of this important organization. We need to condemn in the strongest terms possible what has been happening in the Pan-African Parliament until it was suspended. It does not represent who we are as an African people. It does not even represent the name of the institution, which is supposed to stand for Pan-Africanism. And this is because there's a clique of delinquents that have occupied the Pan-African Parliament, and they are basically destroying the basic order that existed in the Pan-African Parliament for their personal interests, to push their own personal agenda. And until we remove such kind of people from the Pan-African Parliament, we certainly expect more chaos, endless chaos, and all these nonsensical power struggles that undermine the Pan-Africanism spirit, and also ridicule those people who have been tirelessly advocating for African unity. There's a lot of leadership that was demonstrated by Southern region, and we need to see more of that so that we can have regions that put in check the regions that are expressing some excesses. They're having some excesses when it comes to the leadership dominance. There are regions like the Francophone, the West African region. They have completely dominated the Pan-African Parliament, and this is very unhealthy. just because they're used to scrambling for power in the regions, they think that the Pan-African Parliament is also an opportunity for them to scramble for power. This needs to be put to an end so that all the regions, whether it's Southern Africa, whether it is North Africa, Central Africa, power needs to be rotating, and this should be applied to all the positions in the Pan-African Parliament, so that this parliament begins to attain whatever objectives that it was supposed to attain. And without having the right leadership at the Pan-African Parliament, they cannot be able to push the agenda that we want to create the African Parliament that will have power to legislate, to create the African Constitution that will unify African people. We need an African Parliament that will be capable of creating laws that apply to the entire African nation, whether it's Africans in the Caribbean, the Pacific, in Latin America, in the United States, in Europe. The laws that will be created should apply to all citizens of African descent all over the world. And also the Pan-African Parliament needs to include all people of African descent, because that's very important. Pan-Africanism is not a concept that is restricted only in the African continent. There's Pan-Africanism in the Caribbean, and this is an ideology that seeks to unify all people of African descent, whether they are in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the United States, in Latin America, North America, Southern America, and all over the world. Pan-Africanism seeks to unify all people of African descent so that we can champion for our own cause, the right to self-determination, the right to protect and defend our cultural heritage, the right to protect our history, to learn and reconnect with our roots. All lies within Pan-Africanism, and this spirit needs to be reinvigorated in the Pan-African Parliament, so that they can have their senses back, and they can begin to see the urgency of African unity, and shelve their personal interests and personal agendas for the sake of unity of Africa. Because as long as we keep dividing Africa based on the colonial regions that we did not even create, Africa will continue being in a chaotic state and laughingstock of the world. We need to put to an end all these divisions that are caused by regionalism, tribalism, and all kind of poor leadership that contribute to the disintegration of Africa, because we have leaders that do not even have the interests of Africa at heart. And when you talk to such leaders, telling them about African unity, they actually don't care, because they can't even unite citizens within their own countries. We need to restore the kind of leadership that will inspire Africans all over the world to come together and work towards self-improvement. And the reason why United States of Africa has continuously been championing for unity of Africa is because we believe that people of African descent have common challenges, whether in the Caribbean, in the Pacific. We have common challenges and common problems that we need to work together to solve. And by working together, it means that we realize that we have a common destiny, shared heritage, and that by working together, it's very easy for us to confront our enemies. So the United States of Africa will continue introducing new programs that are educative and inspire Africans to come together and realize their full potential. We are driven by the desire to see a unified Africa. And this is why any program that we create is not personal in nature. It's meant for public good. And if you like our programs, you can support us on Patreon, and you can also participate, volunteer as a host or a guest in one of our shows, and be part of what we are trying to create. West Papua has been under brutal Indonesian occupation, and now Indonesia is killing unarmed civilians. 1,700 civilians have been displaced in Ilaga, West Papua. University students were also displaced by Indonesian military without being given alternative accommodation. And all this is happening, yet we don't even hear the so-called human rights organizations talking about what's happening in West Papua, the intense militarization of West Papua. And the indigenous people are struggling for the right to exist on this earth. And Indonesia continues to wreak havoc in West Papua. Many innocent civilians have been displaced, some living in the forests without food, shelter, and clothing. And the so-called UN Human Rights Commission has been silent all along. The so-called UN spokesperson has also been silent. And it appears that the indigenous people in West Papua are left to fend for themselves. And this is completely unacceptable. The United States needs to play a more visible role in ending the conflict in West Papua, because the civilians are in dire need for humanitarian assistance. They also need to exist. They need the right to self-determination, and this is the only solution for West Papua. By granting them this right to determine their destiny, this is the only way we can ensure that their human rights are protected, and their very existence is not threatened by brutal activities of colonial Indonesian regime. It's about time that the United Nations Human Rights Council puts West Papua into the colonization lists, and they admit that there is a genocide that happened, and there is an ongoing genocide in West Papua as I'm speaking now. And United Nations has completely failed to provide a leading role in ending this genocide, both environmental and also human genocide. West Papuan women and children are suffering. Many are being raped by Indonesian military. And these so-called world leaders that champion democracy and human rights appear to be silent when it comes to West Papua. And this needs to come to an end. They need to be more proactive. And Netherlands need to own up to these crimes against humanity being committed by Indonesia. Australia needs to stop supporting Indonesia to undertake this genocide, because Australia has been funding and even training the Indonesian military that is responsible for genocide in West Papua. This needs to come to an end. And also the African Union needs to play an active role in ending the genocide in West Papua. We saw that this issue of West Papua was discussed in the SCP summit that was held in Nairobi, but I haven't seen any further steps that the SCP group of states has taken to ensure that this conflict in West Papua is brought to an end, and the West Papuans are given the right to determine their destiny. United States of Africa stands in solidarity with indigenous people in West Papua, and will continue raising awareness and advocacy until West Papua is free. As long as West Papua is not free, then I'm also not free. For the last 4 years, I've been running this campaign. I've learned a lot about what is happening, and I've also become a West Papuan, and I feel their pain. I can feel their sorrows. I can feel the anguish, and I can see how sad West Papuan children are, and how sad and devastated West Papuan women are, and this should be a state of emergency everywhere. All nations should run to save West Papua, because it's in a state of emergency, and Indonesia does not respect the human rights, the basic fundamental human rights for indigenous people in West Papua. Thank you very much for supporting United States of Africa. You can share our stream and get involved in creating a unified Africa that is unified by the Pan-African by the Pan-African principle of Africa for Africans at home and abroad. Once again, the United States of Africa strongly condemns the chaos witnessed in the Pan-African Parliament, and we call the African Union to review those members that are in the Pan-African Parliament, so that all these hoodlums removed from the Pan-African Parliament, and people with integrity are placed in those positions, so that they can help advance the African agenda to see a unified Africa.